Hello. Tonight we'll do some haiku, which I am pulling from my little book, The Four Seasons, which was published in 1958, and which includes haiku by a variety of Japanese haiku artists who are all writing during kind of like the classical tradition, period of haiku making in Japan, which is the 17th century through the 19th. So evidently the haiku emerged in the 17th century as a sort of response to more ornate forms of poetry that preceded it. The haiku is, of course, famously very short, 17 syllables to be exact. You might remember this from your elementary school exercises. 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, and again 5 syllables in the third line. But in addition to those formal constraints, classical haiku also has some thematic constraints. So traditionally, haiku would have been about nature or about seasonality, or would have at least included references to nature and seasonality in an attempt to evoke some kind of like oblique emotional response in the reader. And according to the introduction of this book, something I didn't know is that haiku traditionally had like 2 subjects, not more than 2, but typically 2, that were sort of like set against each other in the poem to sort of make this kind of miniature whole that's kind of greater than the sum of its parts. But of course, in the centuries since, the haiku has become this very democratic poetic form, which is something I love about it. Anyone can read haiku. Well, you know, most people can read haiku, and anyone can write a haiku. So it's such an easy thing to do, and I think at this point in history, like, you can write something on any topic that's 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables, call it a haiku, no one's gonna question you. So that's something I love about the haiku. I think it's just a great writing exercise. I think anybody who wants to like write a poem, but doesn't know how, or doesn't feel like they know how, or doesn't know where to start, here's a place to start, the haiku. Couldn't be easier. Yeah, so I'm going to read several haiku from this collection. So I'll read things by various authors, all kind of written in this time period, you know, between the 17th and the 19th centuries. I decided that since haiku are all about seasonality, I'll just read poems from the spring and summer section of the book, since summer is swiftly approaching here. And I think what I will do is read the name of the poet before I read the poem. So at least you have some sense of, you know, if you like something that you hear, you can maybe look up the poet. You'll notice I tend to be drawn to haiku by Issa, who is a 19th century haiku artist who had kind of like a wry sense of humor. I can't tell you who translated these poems because it doesn't say in the book, which I think is interesting and something I'm like piecing together from this Poetry Month project. Like, I guess there must have been a point in time in history in the 20th century where it was like deemed important to know who translated. And then before that, I guess this was largely uncredited labor. So don't know who translated these, but just, I guess, important to remember that they are in translation. So in English, we're inevitably losing some shades of meaning that would be in the original Japanese, but perhaps gaining something in their English versions. All right, we'll start with one by Issa. The first firefly, but he got away, and I, air in my fingers. Next, Sokan. Hands upon the ground, old aristocratic frog recites his poem. Issa. Rainy afternoon. Little daughter, you will never teach that cat to dance. Issa. Now take this flea. He simply cannot jump, and I love him for it. Shiki. For a companion on my walking trip, perhaps a little butterfly. Issa. Congratulations, Issa. You have survived to feed this year's mosquitoes. Joso. And each morning, right above this little roof, my private skylark. Issa. Don't waste precious time now, tagging along with me, Brother Butterfly. And finally, Hokushi. Experimenting, I hung the moon on various branches of the pine. Thank you.